Hi, welcome to the John Gaunt Show. Doing one tonight. I wasn't going to. I'd been down at my daughter's, as you know, but I got home and this Rachel Reeves story is breaking everywhere, and we need to talk about it. Rachel Reeves, she's in charge of your tax dollars. But today, there's been more revelations about expenses, credit cards, and indeed, when or wasn't she working at HBOS, Halifax Bank of Scotland. We've already ascertained before that she was never an economist with that bank, or the Bank of England, as she described it. But it now looks like there's some doubts over the dates. And the most concerning part of this story is that this isn't a story broken by somebody in the or so-called right-wing press. Well, depends how you look at it. It's the BBC who have exposed this, and they're not happy. And nor am I. And I'm going to be very careful because I'm going to have to read bits of what they've written, of what the allegations are. But to sum up, basically, she's lied. Liar, liar, your pants are on fire, Rachel. You must now resign. Or that man who's got the backbone of an amoeba, the backbone of a blancmange, Sir Keir Starmer, has to sack you. It's inevitable. Just like that other woman, Louise Haigh, who got accused of some problems with should we put it like this, a mobile phone when she worked for her previous company before she became an MP. This Rachel Reeves is in the same position, but it's more concerning because she is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the second most important person, some people say the most important person, in any government. How will any foreign nation, how will any multinational company ever trust Britain when we've got a woman like this in charge? And a bigger question, and I do want your comments, so we've already had some, I'll read them later, but during the show, but your views also on Labour. Can any of them lay straight in bed? How many more scandals are we going to get before we get rid of lousy Labour? Now, of course, the Tories were mired in so-called corruption, and especially over things like COVID and the PPE. So I'm not giving them a clean bill of health, but we must concentrate tonight on the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I say, and I think when you hear these allegations, you will agree with me, she's not fit for office. And if Keir Starmer was any kind of man, if he was any kind of leader, he'd sack her. She'd already be gone. That's what I say. Interestingly, today, Keir Starmer went to Milton Keynes, one of my old stomping grounds, and he got booed, and he got harassed, and he got harangued by farmers. They started blowing their horns on their tractors. He had to run away, just like he did in Southport, straight back into the armoured Range Rover, and he was off out of there. He was meant to be speaking to the farmers. Rachel Reeves later, she said, well, the farmers have got to choose between paying more tax or us subsidising everybody else, etc., etc. No, Rachel, we could stop giving all that money to foreign aid. We've got enough money to give the winter fuel allowance to every pensioner and to scrap this poxy idea of attacking farmers. We could also help out the students as well. You lot are playing smoke and mirrors with us. You're con men and con women, and it would appear that that's somehow an intrinsic part of being a Labour minister. I refer you back to Louise Haigh, who got the boot eventually. Because again, Starmer's got, as I say, no backbone. If he was a leader, he'd have booted her by now when the first allegations came out months and months ago. So your views, please, and we'll come to them in a moment. The £22 million black hole was a massive lie. I don't know if it's a massive lie, Blue Nose TSG, but it was certainly not the truth, because if it was the truth, they would have told us what that black hole was made up of. I'm not saying they weren't left in a terrible position. They clearly were, but they've used that all the way. So the BBC, this is how they start their article. Questions have been raised about the accuracy of the Chancellor's online CV and the use of expenses while working at a bank, that was HBOS, in the wake of a BBC News investigation. Rachel Reeves, this is the thing, you see, it isn't just about the fact she's fibbed on her CV. Now, I know people do that. I'm not a Puritan, but she said she was an economist at the Bank of England. That was a lie. She also said she worked there for 10 years. No, she didn't. It was less than 6 years. And 1 year of that, she was a student at the London School of Economics. So that's why people started calling her Rachel from accounts, which I didn't necessarily totally agree with. I think it was a bit misogynistic. But the bottom line is she's a liar. Rachel Reeves and 2 colleagues were the subject also of an expenses probe while she was a senior manager at the Halifax Bank of Scotland, HBOS. No wonder that went bust in the late 2000s. It's also revealed that the Chancellor's online CV exaggerated the length of time she worked at the Bank of England. Well, we knew that. But Sir Keir Starmer, whilst he was running away from the farmers in Milton Keynes this morning, said Reeves has dealt with any issues that arise when asked about her CV by a reporter. I don't think that's the case. 2-tier. Is it 2-tier? 3-tier? 4-tier, Keir? I don't know. It's certainly one rule for them and another rule for us mugs who pay for it all. Anyway, back to this investigation into her. The initial stage of the investigation found that a whistleblower's complaint was substantiated at HBOS, and the 3 employees, that's Rachel and 2 of her pals, appeared to have broken the rules, according to a senior source with direct knowledge of the probe. The BBC said they haven't been able to establish what the final outcome of the investigation was, but of course these 3 people, including Reeves, left. A spokesman for Rachel said the Chancellor had no knowledge of the investigation. That sometimes happens. People investigate you without you knowing, but that she always complied with the expenses rules and left the bank on good terms. I'll talk to you about that in a moment. Sir Keir was asked about the CV question, whether he was comfortable that she exaggerated her relevant experience. Our supreme leader said the issues were from many years ago, but that he and the Chancellor get up every day to make sure the economy in our country, which was badly damaged under the last government, is revived. And we have growth. Have you seen the growth today? Yeah. And that is felt in the pockets of working people across the country. Did he tread in some of the bullshit when he was out on the farm today? Because that's what I can smell. Meanwhile, the Conservative leader, they're hardly cleaner than clean, are they? Kemi said the investigation raised questions for the Chancellor. She posted on X, Keir Starmer said that restoring trust in politics is the great test of our era. Until she, Rachel Reeves, comes clean, not just about her CV, but about the circumstances in which she left HBOS, no one will take Starmer seriously. What do you make of that? That's where we'll kick off from. We better take some more of your views. Evening, Gaunty, Daunston Cook on Twitter or X. Hope you're well. She's lied on her CV, and now it seems she's fiddled her expenses. Got to say this. She denies that. And she denies, well, she says that she wasn't aware of an investigation, and HBOS basically aren't backing that up. But that's the allegation from the BBC. Anyway, so it now seems she filled her expenses, Dumston. And can we talk about yet another Islamist attack in Germany? What has the leaders of the West done to us all? But is it too late? Oh, by the way, just on that subject, Baron Flights, I saw your joke. Can't read it out because some people would be offended. I hope you understand why. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's another Ali's snack bar attack. Not funny, not amusing. 28 people mowed down. It's a disgrace. And it's because the leaders are meeting in Germany tomorrow, isn't it? And meanwhile, we're letting everybody in. Come on in. Did you read? Did you see my video yesterday when I talked about this? They're not in control of the small boats. The bloke who wanted to do the job, the bloke that Keir Starmer wanted to do the job, wanted to be paid 130 grand, but he wanted to work from home. Complication is he was border security and his home is in Finland. In other words, he likes to live in a country where there's no real problems with illegal migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, economic migrants, what you want to call them. But he wants to pick up a huge wedge. Kemi got him on this yesterday in Prime Minister's Questions, and Starmer said, no, he now will be living and working here. But it should never have come up as a question. Well, who are these plonkers who are in charge? Well, we know how they got voted in. They were the least worst option after 14 years of misrule by the Tories. But what a joke. Do you believe this bloke who wanted to work at home can actually control our borders? Of course he can't. Billion, John, not million. You're right, Blue Nose. Sorry about that. That was just a mistake of me. Graham Bagley says, evening. I truly can't see how we'll get through the next few years, John, until the next general election. I thought the Tories was bad, but this lot are worse. Well, this lot are incompetent. They've not yet been as corrupt as the Tories, but there's a big sniff around this Rachel Reeves story. She will have to go. She's also crap at her job. Like I've always said, she uses Diane Abbott's abacus for the sums, I think. And it's just fallen apart. We're not yet in recession. I did say yesterday we're about to be. I wasn't far wrong if you look at the figures today. We're in a dire situation. Don't know whether we can, if we're being fair, say that they are worse than the Tories yet, but I wouldn't bet against it. Denise Deacon, let's be fair, John. Lying and fiddling expenses is part of the job description for being in government, isn't it? Fair enough. Yeah, and also this thing about the credit card, I seem to recall, if you can remind me, didn't she get her Westminster credit card taken off her as well? Because there were some questions over what she'd bought. But let me get back to the BBC story. And I'm not embarrassed to say this is coming from the Beeb. I say well done to them. Well done. Rachel Reeves has frequently cited her time at the Bank of England. I hope you realise why I'm having to read this out, because I don't want to get done for slander or libel by making a little mistake. So I'm being very careful what I say. She cited her time at the Bank of England as part of the reason that voters could trust her with the public finances. And she's repeatedly claimed to have been there for 10 years. The Chancellor left the financial institution 9 months earlier, though, than she stated in her LinkedIn profile. This means she spent only 5.5 years working at the bank. This is the Bank of Scotland, HBOS, right? Including nearly a year while she was a student studying, despite Rachel Reeves publicly claiming to have spent a decade there. So she says she was in the bank for a decade. Now, last time I looked at a decade, that's 10 years. She was barely there 5 years. That's not even half a decade. She is definitely using Diane Abbott's abacus, and she's taking you and me for a mug. Well, I ain't having it. I'm not having it. She must go. She must be sacked. Do you agree with me? Quick drink of water, then I'll come back to you. I'm raging about this, as you can probably be aware, and I'm sure you are as well. So she left in March 2006, when she then began working for the Halifax Bank of Scotland in West Yorkshire. A spokesman for Reeves confirmed that dates on her LinkedIn profile were inaccurate. This is the best excuse since I said my dog ate my homework and I got 6 of the best on my arse because Ken Cook, my PE teacher, said, you ain't got a dog, Gaunty, right? Well, I don't know if Rachel Reeves has got... There's a joke there, stop it. I don't know whether Rachel Reeves has got a dog, but she's certainly barking up the wrong tree if she thinks she's going to get away with that excuse. She says it was an administrative error by the team. So instead of her taking one for the team, she's making the team all take one for her. They all now agree, oh, yeah, the Chancellor hadn't seen a LinkedIn profile before it was published. What's that smell? Keir, what have you got on your shoes for when you sprinted, or your training shoes, sprinted away from the farmers in Milton Keynes today? Cluck, 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 Keir. You're the Prime Minister. Couldn't you cope with a few angry farmers? Well, if you couldn't, you shouldn't have nicked their money and nicked their land, should you? Speaking before the Prime Minister was interviewed today, this was when he was jogging away, a Downing Street spokesman said the Prime Minister had no concerns about Reeves' conduct. Really? Well, I don't want to upset you, Sir Keir, but you are meant to represent us, and I think the public are fuming. Even Labour supporters must be up in arms about this. So asked whether he still thought the Chancellor had integrity after she updated her career history, I'm laughing, on LinkedIn, his official spokesman said, yes. The Chancellor and the Prime Minister are working hand in hand to deliver on the priorities, the plan for change, and to deliver the higher growth, have you seen the figures, and the improvements in living standards that the country needs. Well, I think they are working really hard. I've never felt better off. Have you? Don't you feel great in Labour's utopia? It's wonderful. We've all got so much money. We can let everybody come in and use our National Health Service and turn it into a World Health Service. We can let them all stay in 4-star hotels. We've got so much cash. I'm not bothered about it. I think it's marvellous. Marvellous. What's he got on his cocktail? What does that mean, Mark Turvey? Try and make sense if you can. A new revelation about this joke of a government, John, is forthcoming every single day. What's it going to be tomorrow? It'd be funny if it wasn't so tragic. Head in hand, says Graham Hatton, one of my big listeners now, and follows me, of course, on YouTube. Are you doing that? John Gaunt TV. Please do so. And please subscribe. It's free to subscribe. Subscribe, and then you'll make sure you get all my videos, all my podcasts. And we're getting a growing audience. It takes time, but it's great. So thank you for that. And if you want to help me out financially, and by God, I need it, just go to www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt and donate anything from £5 upwards. I'm going to put a page up on the website next because I've got my website going as well. That's easy, johngaunt.com. I'm going to put all the names of the people who have supported me. I'll probably do that tomorrow. Then number 10, we're going back to the official BBC line here, by the way. Keep your comments coming in. The number 10 official also added that the Chancellor had gone through the declaration process. Oh, that's all right, then, isn't it? We can trust that, which all members of Cabinet go through, and asked if she disclosed that there'd been an investigation into her expenses before she was an MP. That's why she's saying she wasn't aware of any investigation, right? They've got to be careful the words they use. Reeves' profile was updated Thursday morning, yesterday, just before the BBC broke the news to reflect that the Chancellor left the Bank of England in March 26, 2006. Then she went to HBOS, of course. It's just all bullshit, isn't it? This is all just, oh, panic, let's change the LinkedIn. No, it's not the first time she's had to change it. She did it before. Well, was it Oscar Wilde who said, to once is okay, to do it twice is to do it 3 times, whatever. You know the quote I'm talking about. It's BS. The rest of her profile has also been subsequently edited to clarify the dates that she then worked at HBOS. Reeves' profile on the social media site LinkedIn says she worked at the Bank of England between September 2000 and December 2006. A photo, and they've got it up on there, it's worth having a look at the BBC website, shows her from March 2006 with other HBOS staff at the Council of Mortgage Lenders annual lunch. A former HR lead for the bank who helped with Reeves' relocation because she had to move to Yorkshire, which is why she's now the MP for Pudsey, wonderful place. I used to write Emmerdale Farm up there. Also said she could recall her first day, and it was definitely March 2006. In a 2021 magazine interview, which she subsequently posted on X, this is Rachel, she's so thick. She said, I spent a decade working as an economist at the Bank of England, and I loved it. I bet you did. In a speech to the Labour Party British Business Conference in February last year, Reeves said, I spent the best part of a decade as an economist at the Bank of England. This was all to qualify her to have this job as the Chancellor. She said the same thing in a speech at a CEO summit in July 2022. How many times does she want to lie? She's like Judas Iscariot, isn't she? on speed. Any minute now, the cock will crow. And in a video posted on her Facebook page in the same month in July, she repeated the statement. The claim was also repeated in a Labour Party document last year, which stated that she spent most of her first decade of her career at the Bank of England. Anybody want to say anything about this? This is just incredible. John, what I wanted to write would be getting a knock on the door for hurty words. You missed my joke, sadly. Yeah, coattail. Yeah, well, it wasn't a very good joke. But thanks for a great show, he says. That's all right, Mark. You know, sometimes jokes fall on stony ground. Don't I know it? So where we got to then? Let me tell you some more what the BBC are saying. Last year, during previous controversy about her CV, do you remember? The Bank of England confirmed that Reeves had left in 2006, but refused to give the month of her departure, saying it was a detailed staff record which they couldn't provide. That's convenient. Reeves then stood for election in Bromley in southeast London, but that was a Labour stronghold, more than 3 months after she'd taken a job in West Yorkshire. That's weird, isn't it? She didn't get in anyway. She stood in a by-election on the 29th of June 2006, but already taken up the role at HBOS in March of that year and received, this is a cracker, a relocation package, right? So she was really honourable to HBOS. It isn't no wonder they went bust. It's understood she rented a flat in Leeds, but kept a flat in London at the same time. Now, the Chancellor's online CV gives incorrect dates for the Times HBOS as well, which her team also acknowledged. It states that she left in December 2009, 5 months before she was elected to Parliament in May 2010. In fact, the BBC have established her employment at HBOS finished in mid-May 2009 when she signed what's called a compromise agreement. An invoice for legal advice on the agreement stated that it arose from a decision by your employer to terminate your employment. The bank was undergoing restructuring at the time of her departure, and a spokesman of the Chancellor said she had taken voluntary redundancy. This is from a job that she really loved. In fact, she loved it so much she thought she was there for longer than she was. We've all had jobs like that, haven't we? How are you meant to believe any of this? It's a fairy tale. It's a grim tale with only one M, that's for sure. And these people have the temerity to want to lead us. She's taking money off pensioners. She's stealing money and inheritance from farmers. Tax rises, all the lies that they came out with. Council tax won't go up. This won't go up. She's going to do an emergency budget because she's effed up our economy. And then she talks about her plans. It's incredible. Now, a compromise agreement is now known as a settlement agreement. I'm glad the BBC tells us this. It's a legal document between an employer and an employee, which HBOS used when senior managers were made redundant. I don't know if there was a non-disclosure bit in it. There must have been. She was also allowed to continue using a company car for 6 months. I know that happened to people I know at the BBC and indeed at the Sun. One of my best mates got made redundant and they let him keep his Jag for 6 months. She then spent a year campaigning ahead of the May 2010 general election without seeking further employment. No wonder she was loaded. And when stay tuned, don't tune out yet, because I haven't even got to the expenses bit where she's buying handbags on the company credit card for her boss. It's not that kind of scandal. He was a fella. Oh, he was a woman. Sorry. She was a woman. But you wait till this comes up. You won't believe it. LinkedIn profile was changed last year after she faced accusations that she'd embellished her online CV, and she changed it to retail banking, which is where she got the nickname from, Rachel in accounts. It had previously been claimed she worked as an economist at the bank, but she instead held a management role in the bank's customer relations department, basically dealing with awkward sods like me, ringing up and moaning. In November, several MPs raised the row in the House of Commons while putting questions to that genius, brain of Britain, Deputy Prime Minister, and we can trust her, can't we? Angela Rayner, the one who had the free flat from Lord Ali in New York. And by the way, we still haven't got to the bottom of The bottom of that, have we, with Lord Ali? Why was he buying suits for Starmer, buying clothes and frocks for Starmer's wife? Why was Starmer's son studying for his A-levels even after the A-levels had finished in his penthouse flat in Covent Garden? That's what we need to know as well. They love a freebie. Why did they all get freebies to Taylor Swift? Why does Starmer have an executive box at Arsenal and not pay a penny for it? There's lots of questions. That's before we get on to the glasses, which he got free. Oh, who gave him those? Lord Ali. The Prime Minister's spokeswoman also faced questions at that time, with journalists asking if Sir Keir expected members of his... I've got to, this bit's good cracker. They asked this Prime Minister's spokeswoman about whether Sir Keir, two-tier Keir, expected members of his cabinet to tell the truth on their CV. The spokeswoman said the row related to the Chancellor's time before she was the Chancellor. There's the get out. Oh, yeah, doesn't matter. It was before they became the Chancellor. Yeah, but if she hadn't lied on a CV, would you have given her that job? If she'd coughed up and said, well, there was this, and then there was an expenses scandal, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, etc., she wouldn't have got the job, would she? She'd be a backbench MP. She might not even be an MP. And also, you imagine you fiddle something on your CV, see whether you keep your job. See whether you keep the job. And this is the classic line from the Prime Minister's spokeswoman. She said, the Prime Minister is very clear that what is most important is having a Chancellor who is able to balance the books and who is able to be, wait for it, straight with the public and restore the public finances, the spokeswoman added. What an absolute joke. And are we meant to tolerate this? Are we meant to say, oh, that's all right, Angela, don't worry about it, love, they're just picking on you. Bloody BBC, it's because they want to take the licence fee off them, etc., etc., etc. It's a farce. It's a disgrace. And then the BBC have a completely other article, if you look on their website, where they go on to speak about Angela before she became an MP and the problem she had with her expenses then. I would advise you to look at that as well. Meanwhile, I'm going to go back and read out a few more comments. She was sacked, in other words, says John Mark Turvey. Well, we can't say that, John. That's why we're being careful. They left. She was made redundant and she had an agreement. Lovely lamb lunch. Hello, Gaunty. Just switched on. That's all right, mate, as long as you're here. I only decided to do it an hour ago. I'm shocked that Arsenal fans haven't made a song about him yet, as he doesn't turn up. As an Arsenal fan, I'm well peed off. He's over the Arsenal for free. Thank you, John, for that. Well, he is the Prime Minister. Maybe you should have a go at doing that one day. I'm pulling your leg. Anybody else want to comment? Keep them coming. Over 300 viewers at the moment. That is fabulous. Thank you. 311, actually. Thank you very much indeed. Let's just also now talk a bit about her CV and what she did before. She was telling people when... Oh, don't forget as well, she's got a sister in the House of Commons. She's always praising her. I wrote a really sarcastic thing back to her and said, well, you would say that. You're her sister, right? It's just the sniff. I'm not going to use the word corruption, but it doesn't feel right, does it, this? It just doesn't feel right, what we're hearing today. In a public post on LinkedIn, one of her ex-colleagues, Kev Gillett, said, back in 2009, Right Honourable, how can she be called a Right Honourable? Huh? She's nearly as dodgy as Del Boy, isn't she? But at least Del Boy made you laugh. Rachel Reeves worked 3 levels below me. Stop it, at the back. Just facts. She was a complaint support manager at LBG HBOS, not an economist. Fact check. In fact, it emerged she'd worked in a managerial role within the bank's complaint handling department, and her LinkedIn profile was updated to say that. He also made another claim, this whistleblower, in 2000. He worked at the bank when she was at the bank too, 2006, 2009. He said she nearly got sacked due to an expenses scandal where the 3 senior managers were all signing off each other's expenses. Now, that sounds like a fiddle, doesn't it? Huh? That's like, I think I was telling you about working for Commando Cleaning Group, and we used to sign on as Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck because it was all cash in hand. It used to happen in the print industry as well, didn't it? People, everybody's fiddled their expenses at one time, but not everyone wants to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And so they were signing each other's expenses, all very cozy, all lovely. And like I said to you earlier, there's allegations that she actually bought a handbag for her boss. And there was a limit of 50 quid or something on the credit card. Now, I find all this weird because then when she got into Parliament, she got into trouble for using a credit card in the wrong way, her Commons credit card, and she had to pay back £4,000. £4,000. I find this really, really odd. And then, of course, Louise Haigh, the one with purple hair, pink hair, who got the bullet eventually by Starmer because he couldn't take the pressure much more. The heat was getting too much. She's the one who lost a mobile phone. Then she found the mobile phone again, but forgot to tell the police, as you do. So she used it again. She could have gone down for that. Are you enjoying it, by the way? Are you enjoying the show? Have you checked out my website, www.johngaunt.com? I can take a few more comments, but I want to give you a few more revelations, if that's okay. I hope you're getting the gist of where this is going. So it says here that the BBC, this was funny, HBOS employees on a private Facebook group had asked if anybody remembered her when she worked for them after she got elected and became the Chancellor. One former employee replied, "The expenses department certainly do." Now, these are allegations, of course, but several HBOS people said she was investigated. She was. And the BBC have spoken to more than 20 people, 20, many of whom were former colleagues, and they say this is what happened. The BBC, this is where Rachel has got to be very careful. It says, and gaining access to receipts, emails, and other documents. The BBC, this is how the press works, they'll already have all this information. So they're waiting to see whether she denies it completely, whether Starmer sacks her or stands by her, and then they'll come back and have another go. And it won't just be the BBC now. Every newspaper will be digging on this. She's finished. She's gone. She's a deceased politician. She's like the parrot in Monty Python. We won't miss her because she was all rubbish. Back to HBOS. People raised concerns that these three managers, Rachel and her two of friends, were using the bank's money to, and I quote, fund a lifestyle with allegedly inappropriate spending on dinners, nice work if you can get it, events, taxes and gifts, including for each other. The BBC say they're not being able to establish what the final outcome of the investigation was. Indeed, they say it may not have concluded, but there's an awful lot of smoke. Now, if it's all lies, she should come out and say there's no truth in this whatsoever. She should challenge HBOS to defend her. And if they don't defend her, then we make our minds up. And if they do defend her, we'd have to all apologise. I just find it incredible. I find it incredible that she has the brass neck to decide whether a pensioner can get the winter fuel allowance, whether they can have heat or meat. She can decide to scrap cheaper bus fares. She can do a complete U-turn with the students. And this council tax, that thing that's coming down the line, I know it's not directly in her department, but you know where I'm coming from. Bunch of liars and shysters. Are you with me or not? Lovely Lamb Lunch says, it's good to have you back, John. I missed you after you left BBC London. You're the voice of reason. Don't think my wife agrees with that. But where have you been? Since I left BBC London, I've been on TalkSport, The Sun, run my own thing. Fair enough. But you got me now on my YouTube channel. I had another guy in Spain today saying, John, where have you been? I need to see you. I used to love your show. I said, well, tune into YouTube, John Gaunt TV. And it was like a revelation for him. And you can watch it when you want to watch it, mate. And you can support me because no one else is supporting me. I'm only getting by the donations of people who think I'm pretty good. www.johngaunt.com. See, it's on the screen at the moment. buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. And if you're listening to the audio podcast at the moment, try the live TV. I'm going to start doing them all at 6:30 in the evening, probably from next week. Bang on form tonight, Gaunty, says Daz Wellings on YouTube. Of course I am. I'm burning, man, burning. I'm not going to read out the one about Tommy Robinson. I don't like people trying to take over my agenda, David Edwards. If you want to talk about what we're talking about, that's fine. If you want to talk about Tommy, then set up your own podcast. I mean, I'll talk about Tommy when I want. I know Tommy personally, right? But I don't like people doing what you're trying to do, diverting the discussion away. So you do it again and you'll get banned. John Gaunt is the best live on the net and cheaper than a TV license, and nobody can silence him, says Steve. That's correct. I am cheaper than a TV license. I'm dead cheap. Oh, John Mark Turvey, you are a moron. In the nicest possible way. John, I'm just looking at your pad. Whose house are you looking after now? John, it's called a green screen. It's the magic of telly. It's a big green screen behind me, and you can project anything you want on it. So I project this lovely house. Like the house I used to own, to be honest. But now I live with my mother-in-law. Was all right? Yeah, I'm down on my uppers or on my uppers. Still got my beautiful wife and my beautiful children. And if you watched it earlier in the week or yesterday, for example, I was in Oxford in her house. And I haven't got the green screen there. I do it in her kitchen, which is pretty trendy anyway. But I've got the green screen. So don't get upset. I'm surprised you don't have your own slot on GB News. So am I. I'm not really surprised, but some of the people on there are useless. They just haven't got the humility to ask me. And if they did, I don't know. I'm like doing what I'm doing. Andy Isaac says, great to see you back, John. Gilbert the Wheel, London Cabbie. Gilbert, good old fan of mine. Can you spread the word amongst the black cabbies, please? Please, thank you. Don't milk it, John. Laugh out loud, says lovely lamb lunch. What are you on about? That John Mark Turvey's come back saying, okay, fella, I didn't know. I love you, son. I loved you for years. Thank you. John couldn't play that piano anyway. No, I couldn't, but my daughter Bethany could. So there you go. There we go. All right, let me go back. Will you stop distracting me for a minute? Because I do want to finish soon. Got a lovely dinner on the way, so I'd like to go back and have a look at that in a minute, if it's all right with you. Well, I'm up to that one. Right. So she worked in the mortgage department, late 2007, moved to become head of business planning in the customer relations department. I'm back to the BBC article. Her career, this is the BBC being bitchy, at HBOS coincided with what would prove to be a tumultuous time for the bank. Yeah, they nearly went bust, didn't they? They got bailed out by us, which is another reason why I think we should say to HBOS, we want the facts. We want the facts. We own you. We bailed you out. You better tell us the exact facts. Because they had a takeover with a government broker takeover by Lloyd's and an emergency bailout. It came to 20.5 billion of taxpayers' money. Maybe that's the black hole that Rachel talks about. It was shortly after the near collapse of the bank in 2009 that a whistleblower from her department, Rachel's department, raised concerns about her spending habits. Before this, in late 2008, a memo was circulated to Reeves and others which called for tighter cost control in her department. So they had monthly meetings with her to say, hey up, careful how much you're spending on the credit card. Yeah? They were concerned. They had a card called a motivation card where somebody who was a top performer, although how anyone could be a top performer during this period, the bank was going bloody bust. But anyway, they could give them free taxi travel, or buy them a crate of wine. But Rachel and her pals started buying each other crates of wine. Do you see what I'm saying? The whistleblower's complaint, submitted by early 2009, was a 6-page document laying out a range of concerns about an alleged spending culture in the customer relations department where Rachel worked, because she wasn't an economist in the bank. It focused on the behaviour of the three individuals, Reeves' boss, who's a woman, and another senior manager in the department. Reeves' boss, who we're not naming, the BBC aren't naming who that means they're going to any minute now, was responsible for signing off the expenses of the other two managers. Oh, that's cosy, isn't it? Yeah. I wonder if that's why Rachel bought her a handbag. The report and attached receipts and other documents seen by BBC News show that Reeves was accused of spending hundreds of pounds on handbags. A handbag! That's, what's that? Is that Oscar Wilde? That's the one about Charlie's aunt, isn't it? Yeah, from where the nuts come from, Brazil. So she spent hundreds of pounds on handbags, perfume, earrings, and crates of wine for colleagues, including one gift for her boss. Concern was expressed about her spending on taxis and on a Christmas party. We've all done it. The whistleblower believed the spending to be excessive. After a call to the whistleblowing hotline, the whistleblower was instructed to hand in the physical copy of their report and supporting evidence, two sources said. A separate source who contacted BBC News themselves, and there'll be loads of people getting in touch with the Beeb now, giving them loads more dirt to throw at, was about the furore around Reeves' CV last year, was also aware that someone had blown the whistle on Reeves and another colleague. The bank's risk department, it was passed to them, and at their request was taken on by the internal audit department. Now there, by this moment, if all this is true, Rachel Reeves' backside must have been clanging. Her bum cheeks must have been clanging, yeah? We've all been in a kind of position like this, haven't we? She must have been in a terrible state. So maybe that's why she would be a good chancellor. I don't know. Given the nature of the allegations, claiming expenses for things you wouldn't normally claim expenses for, and the relative seniority of the individuals, the matter was referred for investigation by a team outside of the department. Are you following all this? They found there was evidence of apparent wrongdoing by the three senior managers, including Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Chancellor of the Exchequer, a senior source with direct knowledge of the investigation has told BBC News. She says none of this is true, that this didn't happen. Then there were interviews. There's no evidence of which the BBC are aware that the bank's internal investigation was ever completed or that there was ever a conclusion or finding of any wrongdoing. However, Reeves left the bank in May 2009, as did her boss, with a handbag, probably stuffed full of cash and wine. The other senior manager was on sick leave in May and never returned to work at the bank. There's no suggestion, says the BBC, of any of the departures being linked to the investigation or spending issues, right? And then it goes on and on about the agreement at the end. But you've got to ask a question, haven't you? You've got to ask a question. They were buying birthday gifts on the credit card with the bank's money for each other. This whistleblower believed that doing so was in breach of the rules. Several whistleblowers have said any birthday gifts were bought with their own money. However, one ex-Steph member, Jane Waper, a former HR business partner who was given permission to speak to us by Reeves' team, claimed that birthday gifts and Christmas presents could be purchased using the motivation credit cards, and staff were encouraged to do so for their team. So maybe that wasn't anything too much to worry about. But how about this? Rachel Reeves spent £152 on a handbag and perfume as a present for her boss, as it was a lady, using the bank's money, according to the whistleblower's report. The present was a joint gift from Reeves and one of the other managers. Oh, that's right. There's only 75 quid each, who was later investigated alongside her. Then Rachel bought earrings as a present for her PA, which she claimed back on expensive. Expensive. It's probably why she was such a good MP. They love their exes, don't they? £400 she spent on the credit card on a leaving meal for a colleague. Must have been a nice meal, wasn't it? Balti, was it? And the whistleblower complainant said this. Also, Christmas gifts were handed out like Smarties, and this £25 limit that was meant to be there, they kind of ignored it. That's the allegation to what happened. And I could go on and on and on, but to be honest, I think you've heard enough. What do you make of it? What do you make of it? What do you make of this? Bloody liar. Shameful, says Daz Wellens. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, then I'm going to stop the broadcast because that'll be nearly 50 minutes I've done. And if you're not paying, that's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah? That's got to be worth a fiver of anybody's money. So if you want to donate. Dead simple to do. Please feel free. Whack in a £5. Buy me a coffee. It's not really a coffee. It's just a metaphor. It's a bit like the green screen. It's not real. I don't sit here all night drinking coffee. I'd be as thin as I don't know what if I did. But you know what I mean. Over 400 watchers now. Thank you ever so much. These are all the people who have donated. I'm just putting up on the screen now. If you're listening on radio, you won't know this, but that's what I'm doing. So you can go to YouTube and have a look later. Simple as that. And where do I want to go now? I just want to finish with a couple of comments, if anyone's got any, about the situation. I think she has to go. I think Keir Starmer must sack her before the cock crows in the morning on the farms, if there's any cocks left on the farm now that he's gone, and also the fact that he's closed them all down. But she's got to go. She's simply got to go. She lied. You cannot have the Chancellor of the Exchequer lying on a CV. That should bar you for life from holding that kind of public office. I'm not a Puritan. Like I say, we've all done a little fiddle on the expenses now and again, but this is hardly a little fiddle, is it? And she's hardly some washed up shock jock sitting in front of a green screen. She's the bloody Chancellor. I don't trust her. I don't trust her with our money. I don't trust her with her projections. And I don't trust her to negotiate with one of Donald Trump's big boys or big girls when it comes to it for trade deals. She's a disgrace. And if she doesn't go, I'm telling you, Starmer won't last much longer because the pressure will turn on to him. That's what's going to happen. He's got a dodgy cabinet. They're full of, we know they're all sixth formers with their politics. And then he appoints Lord Mandelson to go to Washington. That's going to go down like a bucket of vomit at a Vickers Tea Party, isn't it? With Trump, when he gets around to realizing what's happened. He'll get the bullet. There's no way Trump's going to put up with that kind of nonsense. Then you got Lammy and what he's up to. He's the foreign secretary, for God's sake. And have you noticed Trump has got in power? He's sorted out Israel, Hamas. Well, certainly sorted out on Saturday. But he's also, looks like he's sorting out the Ukraine as well. It's all good news. We all want a tough, strong leader. Someone we could believe in. I don't listen to everything Trump says. I don't take it all as gospel. But I do know he's putting the American people first. And I'll tell you something, we could do with that in this country. Lovely Lamb Lunch says you're like a James O'Brien, but good. James O'Brien? Is he still alive? I bet he's still on LBC, isn't he? I'd forgotten about him. That's what he does, isn't it? Mate, he thinks it makes him look intellectual. Anyway, enough. I've done enough. I'm off. I say Rachel Reeves must be sacked. If you agree with me, get on social media. If you've enjoyed the show today, please, please, please come over to YouTube or find it again on Facebook or Twitter and then repost it. Let's get the message out there that the British people want Rachel Reeves gone. We also want Starmer gone, and we need an election, don't we? And we need, well, I'll tell you what we also need, some politicians we can believe and trust in, because I think they're all the same. It's apt that he went to a farm today because they're all self-serving pigs with their snouts in the trough. And with that, I shall end by saying, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Don't forget to tell them you love them. I'll speak to you soon. That's a record number of viewers tonight. Thank you for making this a success. I really mean it. Now put your hand in your pocket. See you later. All the best.